Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Ours is no caravan of despair. Ours is no caravan of despair. Ours is no caravan of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. 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 Come, yet again come.
You are welcome here.
No matter your religious beliefs or lack of belief, you are welcome here.
No matter your age, sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity, you are welcome here.
No importa tu ciudadanía, tú estás bienvenido aquí.
No matter your citizenship, politics,
or relationship status.
No matter your physical characteristics or health, you are welcome here.
Whoever you are, wherever you are from,
you are welcome in this place. Good morning and welcome to the online worship of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Montgomery for April 11, 2021. My name is Lynn Hopkins. It is my great honor to serve this congregation as its minister, and I'm so glad that you joined us here today. I'd like to invite you into this hour of worship with words from the Reverend Barbara Pescan. Patiently we waited in the dark. The planet turned, and we upon it, stupid with sleep, hoping something would happen. While we leaned towards the east, the weight of the night sank beneath us. Toward the north, a comet passed so close we could see it through the sleep in our eyes, and dawn flung itself up, swirling with clouds and color and bird song. Look, this is our world for another day. Reach out to it. It is your own life. Know, too, that this day is dear, even to strangers you will never know. Stretch out your arms to embrace it. Do not go back to sleep. For those who would like, I invite you to join us in speaking aloud the Congregational Covenant. We, the members and friends of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Montgomery, promise to serve our community with open minds, willing hearts, and helping hands as we respect one another, honoring that our perceptions may differ, value our differences, working to better understand them in conflict, give joyfully of ourselves, being in harmony with our capabilities, and embrace our connections with each other, nature, the global community, and the great mystery of life. Now let's hear from our Coordinator of Religious Education, Roger Burdett, with A Time for All Ages.
Hey there. It's hard not to be outside on a beautiful spring day like this, out in the public wearing this shirt. Drink water, right? Love hard, good. Fight racism. Now, one of the reasons I own this shirt, and I've owned some others in the past too, but recently some of us at our fellowship have started a book study. We are reading through a book called How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. And the premise of the book is that it's not enough to simply say, if you care about racial justice and human relations, it's not enough, Ibram says, to simply say, hey, I'm not racist. He says you need to take the next step and be anti-racist, against racism. So that's sort of what the shirt is about. It's about going into the public, taking a stand. But the subject today deals with all of this, our skin, a first conversation about race by Megan Madison, Jessica Raleigh, and Isabel Rojas. We do have permission to use it. It's published by Penguin Books, which is part of Random House, and they are making some exceptions for educators like me to read books like this in this forum. Our skin, a first conversation about race. We have skin. Imagine that, just look at it. It comes in different colors. What color is your skin? We see different skin colors at the playground. I'm at sort of a playground type thing right now. We see different skin colors at the playground and at the grocery store, on TV. What skin colors do you see? Our friends have different skin tones. So do the people in our families. What about in your family? What skin tones are in your family? Our skin is beautiful, it is strong, and it's important just the way it is. What do you love about your skin? Now they're about to get sciencey on us, which is great. We get our color from something smart inside our bodies called melanin. It protects our skin from the sun. You have melanin too. All of us do. Everybody has just the right amount of melanin for them. Melanin. Hey, let's don't take their word for it. There's this thing called the internet. Even at a place like this, I can stop and look stuff up. So let's see. Melanin, a dark brown to black pigment occurring in the hair, skin, and iris of the eye in people and animals. It is responsible for tanning of skin exposed to sunlight. The darker your skin, the more melanin you have. The lighter your skin, the less melanin you have. Melanin makes our skin many beautiful shades from dark to light. What do you call your unique skin color? We may use color words to describe people like black and white. Sometimes we say people of color to talk about all the groups of people who aren't white. Our world has so many different groups of people, so there are lots of words that we use. Black, indigenous, Asian, white, Arab, Pacific Islander, African American, Latinx, biracial, and so many more. What groups do you belong to? I mean, we're really trying to open up a conversation. What groups do you belong to? Skin color cannot tell you much about what people are like, what they know, what foods they think are yummy, what their favorite books are, or even where they were born. We've got to be careful about making assumptions based on the color of one's skin. Just by looking at somebody, we can't tell who they are on the inside. But sometimes, let's be honest, people try to anyway. A long time ago, way before you were born, a group of white people made up an idea called race. They sorted people by skin color and said that white people were better and smarter and prettier, and they deserve more than anybody else. Well, that is not true or fair at all, but it is a story that's been told for a really long time. When people believe this untrue story about race, that is called racism. Racism is also the things that people do and the unfair rules that they make about race so that white people get more power and are treated better than everybody else. Racism happens in lots of big and small ways. It's all around us, even if we don't always notice it. Racism can be a rule, like if someone says that only friends with white skin can play. I'm a teacher, and I was having a very important discussion with my high school students recently, and I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. But one of my African American young ladies remembered a time when she was young, and she had a friend, but the mother did not want this young lady to hang out with the other child because her skin was not white. How sad is that? Racism can be an idea, like thinking princesses only have blonde hair. Racism can be a way we've done things for a long time, like how there aren't as many books written about people of color. Racism can be on purpose, like calling a person of color a mean name simply because of the color of their skin. Now, racism can be by mistake, like if the same friend always has to play the bad guy. But racism hurts, and it's always unfair. And that is why it's important to talk about racism and to do our parts to make things better. All the time, even right now, people are working for racial justice by telling the truth and sharing their feelings, by treating people the way that they want to be treated. Speak out! Protests are progress. Black Lives Matter. By bravely saying, that is not right. By marching in protest. By singing songs that bring us together. By changing unfair rules. By teaching. By helping. By learning. By listening. We can do it too. And then in the back of the book, there's some other ideas for continuing the conversation. Parents, if you're interested, I can make this book available. I will leave it at the fellowship. You're free to borrow it. If you end up keeping it forever, you keep it forever. But if you want to go buy a copy for yourself, I make no money if you do or don't. I'm just sharing ideas. Our Skin, a first conversation about race. I got it at Books A Million. I hope this has given you some things to think about a really, really important topic. Love ya. I hope you have a really good week.
If I met you on the corner, would I know you as you are? Would I take you for a stranger and brush past you in the door? And if you called me, would I hear you? Or would I walk away too soon? If I linger for a moment, would I see myself in you? And if I fought you as a soldier, if I had you in my sights, would you ask me to remember who imagined I was right? And if you witnessed my surrender, do I know what I would do? If you held me like my brother, would I see myself in you? Well, I dreamed my end was near. I was almost gone. And if I dream that dream from here, can I still come home? And if you called me, would I hear you? Or would I walk away too soon? If you held me like my lover, would I see myself in you? If you held me like my mother, would I see myself in you?
We take a moment in each service to lift up and let go the things that we carry with us through the week. It's been another one of those weeks, hasn't it? And so we lift up all of our concerns and anxieties, thoughts of pandemic, thoughts of political reactionary movements, thoughts of uncertainty. I want to lift up the family of June Ayers, who died recently after more than 20 years of battling cancer. June was director of the reproductive health services since the mid-'80s here in Montgomery. I want to lift up all those who are struggling with illness, with worry, uncertainty, financial hardship, employment stress, all of the burdens that we carry. But I also want to celebrate the opportunities we have of coming together, of being in fellowship, making connections, hearing each other. We have our annual meeting coming up soon, and we will need all of you engaged in order to emerge strong and solid from this year and more of isolation. I'm grateful for all the work of those who have been reaching out to members and friends of the congregation, trying to make sure that we sustain and nurture those connections. I invite you to use the chat box adjacent to the video to speak aloud whatever is on your heart this morning, joy or sorrow, worry or anticipation, whatever it may be. Let us share and hold it together.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stories of compassion. Blowing wind, rising the sea, moving the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Whose holy cross wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Venite amor, ven hacia mí. Al corazón, cantaré tu compasión. Sopla luz, sube la mar, hasta mollar la justicia de la vida.
So 2 weeks ago, I shared a tiny bit of the poetic expression of a couple of trans Unitarian Universalist ministers, and I told you a tiny bit of their history. One of the strange things that happened in second hour that day, at least it was kind of strange to me, the discussion kept wandering away. We spent a lot of focus on the gay and lesbian experience rather than transgender. It seemed like we were just not prepared as a group to look directly at the subject at hand. And I'm not going to press that today. I will press it, but not today, when I'm ready to lay bare some real raw, uncomfortable truths about our resistance and our fears, and we'll come back to it. I wasn't ready that day, and I'm not ready today. Instead, let's look some more at our history. Unitarian Universalist history with gay and lesbian ministers. We are, as Unitarian Universalists, a boldly progressive movement, always on the cutting edge of social change, or at least that's what we like to think about ourselves. And it's true that we do generally stay half a step or so ahead of other religious systems, but not much more than that. Our very first out gay minister took his first settlement, that is, his first ministerial gig that wasn't interim or otherwise temporary, that happened in 1980. Now, to put that in context, the Stonewall riot was in 1969. Gay rights marches and gay liberation protests started in major cities the following year and continued. But we couldn't have an out gay man in a UU pulpit until more than 10 years later. That's not to say we didn't have any gay ministers. They just couldn't talk about it. Now, this wasn't don't ask, don't tell. This was don't tell, even if you have to lie. James Stoll was born in 1936. He grew up as a Unitarian in Massachusetts. As a young man, he moved to California, did his undergraduate study, and then graduated from the Starr King School for Ministry. That's one of only 2 Unitarian Universalist theology schools. In 1962, he took his first ministerial settlement in Washington State, where he served until 1969. His ministry ended in what we refer to as a negotiated resignation, which is a polite way of saying the congregation wants you gone and they'd rather pay you some severance than end up in court. As is often the case with such things, the details remain unpublished. But he moved back to California, and in 1969, he decided he could no longer live in secrecy and deception. He came out as gay at a UU conference that year and effectively ended his prospects for another ministerial settlement. But it didn't end his ministry. Reverend James Stoll can be credited for much of what started the discussion around gay liberation and queer theology in the Protestant church writ large. Although he had to take other work to earn a living, he remained an outspoken figure within Unitarian Universalism. He gets much of the credit for a resolution passed at the 1970 General Assembly opposing anti-gay discrimination. Now, of course, we understand that being opposed to discrimination is still a long, long way from inclusion. As I mentioned, it would be another 10 years before the first gay minister, who was out at the time of his ordination, got a ministerial settlement. When James Stoll died in 1994 at the age of 58, in the words of Mark Oppenheimer, published in the New York Times, Mr. Stoll left no descendants, but he had many heirs. There were actually 2 ministers settled in 1980 who were out as gay, the Reverend Mark Bellatini and the Reverend Douglas Morgan Strong. I've always heard Bellatini's name as the first gay minister. I'd never heard Strong's. It may be related to Bellatini's extensive published work, which Strong never had, but I suspect it has more to do with the criminal charge of indecent exposure against Strong in 2004 and the subsequent negotiated resignation. Nobody likes to talk about our failures. It matters little that straight ministers have a much higher rate of dismissal for matters of sexual misconduct, and those numbers include some of the most prominent and revered names within our movement. Despite more than 20 years of ministry, Reverend Strong seemed to live into the worst stereotype of gay men, and we wrote him off with a quickness. And that's just an observation. I don't actually have any opinion about the way that worked out, except to say that it is terribly sad whenever I see a minister make a mistake so severe that it ends his career. Mark Bellatini, on the other hand, rose to prominence and served congregations until his retirement in 2014. He continues to appear and speak at special events within the association. He chaired the committee that created the hymnal that we use, Singing the Living Tradition. And he has a number of titles in publication. His most recent collection of poetry is entitled Sonata for Voice and Silence. I'd like to share this selection. Communion Circle. The earth, one planet, round, global, so that when you trace its shape with your finger, you end up where you started. It's one, it's whole. All the dotted lines we draw on our maps of this globe are just that, dotted lines. They smear easily. Oceans can be crossed. Mountains can be crossed. Even the desert can be crossed. The grain that grows on one side of the border tastes just as good as the grain on the other side. Moreover, bread made from rice is just as nourishing to body and spirit as bread made from corn or spelt or teff or wheat or barley. There is no superior land, no chosen site, no divine destiny falling on any one nation who draws those dotted lines just so. There is only one earth we all share, we, the living, with all else that lives and does not live. Virus, granite, wave, city, cornfield, prophet, beggar, child, slum, tower, mine, robin, eel, grandfather, rose, olive branch, bayonet, and this poem and moment are all within the circle, undivided by dotted lines or final certainties. Everything, for good or ill, is part of the shared whole. Sky, earth, song, words, and now this silence. Two years after Bellatini and Strong got their first settlements, Mark Mosher DeWolf was the third. I mention him for several reasons. He was the first out gay minister to serve in Canada. He was enormously popular among his colleagues. He was an inspired and dynamic preacher, and some of his best sermons have been preserved, and scans of the original manuscripts are available online, and they still resonate today. He also has a few selections on the UUA Worship Web collection, and I'd like to share one of those with you. A person is a puzzle. Sometimes from the inside, it feels like some pieces are missing. Perhaps one we love is no longer with us. Perhaps one talent we desire eludes us. Perhaps a moment that required grace found us clumsy. Sometimes from the inside, it feels like some pieces are missing. A person is a puzzle. We are puzzles not only to ourselves, but to each other. A puzzle is a mystery we seek to solve, and the mystery is that we are whole, even with our missing pieces. Our missing pieces are empty spaces we might long to fill, empty spaces that make us who we are. The mystery is that we are only what we are, and what we are is enough. In the gray stillness of this morning, into the accepting peace of a still sky, let us offer our failings, our inadequacies into the silence. And let us know that we are accepted by God and by this company exactly as we are, accepted, missing pieces and all. Reverend Wolf died as a result of AIDS in 1988, but he still has a great deal to say to us. The first out gay woman to get a ministerial settlement was the Reverend Barbara Pescan. Her partner was ordained shortly afterwards, and they served a number of congregations as a couple until retirement. We heard from her in the opening chalice lighting words, but I'd like to give you another one of her works, entitled Holding It All. Thou, I smile when I say it, thou, meaning all that is inside me and outside me, sometimes a tree, sometimes mountains, or the running doe, or the leaping heart, or a finch held between my palms, or a child's hand no bigger than a tulip flower with no space in it yet for fear, resting in my own. Thou that listens to our tentative and doubting dreams, thou hear us into certain song, how we are touched by the lives of our neighbors and kin, by their sorrows, healing, and hopes. In silence we carry with us all day long. We whisper the names of our people, broken and healing, with us and separated, struggling and reborn. May we all be held by someone, something like hands, enfolding the pulse and flutter of a bird, gently, carefully, and slowly opening. Thou, let it be. That was one piece from Reverend Barbara Pescan. There are many more, and she continues to have an important voice in our movement. It's important to know our history, and I think maybe even more important to know the current context of Unitarian Universalism. I will continue to pick up on groups, identities, demographic categories of UU leaders. These are voices that have inspired and continue to inspire and energize me. And it's important that I acknowledge that these are also individuals whose hard work, whose groundbreaking effort, whose bold risk-taking makes my presence here among you possible.
And here's to all the tough girls, and here's to all the sensitive boys. We belong, and here's to all the rejects, and here's to all the misfits. We belong. And here's to all the brains and the geeks. And here's to all the made up freaks. Yeah, we belong. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway. And here's to all the one-hit wonders. And here's to all the mistakes and the blunders. We belong. And here's to all the fashion don'ts. And here's to all the Friday night home alones. We belong. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway. Here's to all the outspoken minorities. And here's to those who chose diversity. We belong. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway.
There's one more figure that I'd really love to tell you about. Her name is Phoebe Ann Coffin Hannaford. And she's probably America's earliest lesbian minister in any tradition. She preached her first sermon in 1865. So come over to Second Hour if you want to hear more about her. You can join me in the room, or you can just hang out for a discussion in another room. But please come over. It's on Zoom. It starts at 11 o'clock. I look forward to seeing you there. There is more and more getting ready to happen as we ramp up for the annual meeting. We'll be talking more and more about the pledge process and the budget process and all that critically important, if sometimes a little tedious stuff. It's the stuff that keeps us alive as a congregation. I want to leave you with these words from the Reverend Mark Mosher DeWolf. What benediction shall I leave you? This: in your life may you know the holy meaning, the mystery that breaks into it every moment. May you live at peace with your world and at peace with yourself. And may the love of truth guide you in your everyday.
And I wanna break from the bonds that hold me. Yes, I want to break them. Isn't it time? And I wanna rest till the rest of us are free. Till the last is the next in line. And I wanna bring my sisters with me. Yes, I want to bring them. Isn't it time? And I wanna rest till the rest of us are free. Till the last is the next in line. Let's talk of freedom. Let's talk of rights. What's that mean when you're stuck in a fight? Just fighting for a place at the end of a long, long line. And I wanna thank those who came for me. Yes, I wanna thank them. Isn't it time? 'Cause they wouldn't rest till the rest of us are free. Till the last is the next in line. Let's talk of freedom. Let's talk of rights. What's that mean when you're stuck in a fight? Just fighting for a place at the end of a long, long line. I wait for the day when oppression will cease. I wait for the day, yes. Well, isn't it time? And I wanna rest till the rest of us are free.